Good morning, Barry Bryson here. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We are studying the Beatitudes, and we're looking at the third Beatitude today. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Let's not forget that by blessing or by happiness, Jesus is not talking about a sensation, but about living a rewarding and productive life, that being made possible by embracing these experiences and seeing the value in them. And we started out by understanding our own insufficiency, and then by learning that there is true comfort for the things that we have lost and the things that we have thrown away ourselves, that there is forgiveness and there is reunion, and that this world is not a terminus, it is a temporary thing, and that we will last beyond it. And then we have this: blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Meekness does not mean weakness, and it didn't to the Greeks either, although it was not thought of as, by most philosophers and ethical thinkers, as a positive virtue in any way. Meekness is gentleness. Meekness is not weakness. But the surrounding culture, the Greco-Roman culture, is a very masculine. It's a testosterone-drenched culture, and it's the culture we still inhabit. These are chimps, not bonobos, okay? This is a culture about beating your chest and asserting your authority and your own importance and inflating your place and being able to establish, yourself as the alpha, and certainly at least as a beta, not an omega. I mean, that's the way the culture was conducted. And so the posture of submission, which is not slavery, by the way, the posture of submission, the posture of gentleness, the posture of humility was not seen in any way as a virtue for a man. Not a free man, not a man who was a citizen. Just was not. Jesus is going to say later on in the Sermon on the Mount, if someone strikes you on your right cheek, you turn the left to him. I don't think we listen to that command very well, because you can't do this if you back down. To turn the other's cheek, you have to stand your ground. What Jesus says is don't back down and don't hit back. And if you want to see this in action, if you want to see someone actually living this out, you can just look to Jesus, who gives us the example in all things. Because in John chapter 18, when he's before the high priest, and he says something, answers back to the high priest that someone thinks is disrespectful, he gets slapped on his face. He gets slapped. He gets struck on his cheek. And what did Jesus say to do? Don't back down, don't hit back. And what did Jesus do in that situation? He said, why did you hit me? What did I do that was wrong? If I'd done something wrong, I would understand why you hit me. But I didn't do anything wrong, so why did you hit me? Jesus did not back down, and he did not hit back. And that's what he's telling us to do. Blessed are the meek. I think we understand what that means. But what does it mean to inherit the earth? We think about someone who lives this way as being worthy of heaven, but he says inherit the earth. Now, he's not talking about inheriting riches, because he uses the word for dirt, for the ground itself. And so he's not talking about inheriting the riches of the world or great estates in the country. He's not talking about that. He's talking about, the dirt, the soil. He's talking about the basics of life. And I'm not sure that I completely understand this, but my best guess, my best attempt at explaining what it means to inherit the earth, I think he really is saying the productive and rewarding life to be lived here is to be lived by people who are meek and gentle, by people who are submissive, because submission doesn't mean slavery and meekness doesn't mean weakness. Both submission and meekness are only possible when we exercise strength, and the greatest strength of all, which is self-restraint, isn't it? I mean, on that, all the Greek and Roman philosophers agree. Well, if it's true that self-control is the greatest strength to exercise, then meekness and submission are only possible in the lives of someone who is strong. Strong from God, not strong in themselves. And I think he's saying by saying inherit the earth, if you want to have a good life here, this is the way to live. You know, to be on the playground, as a middle school boy, trying to establish that you're the toughest kid on the playground, that's no way to live. You can't have a productive and rewarding life living like that. And it will all come back to haunt you, to catch you. You'll be caught up in that life and it will eventually destroy you. The only life that is rewarding, the only life that is productive is a life that's lived in meekness and submission. And that's the only way to make sense of this and I think that's the only way to make sense of life on earth. Well, that's my best take. I hope it's helpful to you. And we'll pick up next time with those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes.